It was a senior day disaster.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further, even wonder what adventure could do around the next quarter? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out today at nissanusa.com. It was a senior day, absolute disaster for the Maryland Terrapins, and just as bad as you could imagine a senior day go about. I don't think it gets much worse than what I watched on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening game. I don't know if I like these Sunday games. I feel like we don't play well on these Sunday games, and college basketball on Sunday kind of throws me for a loop. I guess it was, afternoon game. It was at 2 o'clock against the Indiana Hoosiers, but it was a disaster of a senior day for the Maryland Terrapins as Maryland loses to Indiana 83-78 at home, our last home game of the year. And honestly, it kind of was what our season has been the entire year. Was kind of that game was kind of like what we've watched a lot of the year in terms of how Maryland has played overall, in terms of taking losses where we felt maybe we should have won the game, in terms of all that kind of stuff that went the wrong way that game. It's kind of how our season has gone. When you think about it, on senior day, the one day where you're like, we're appreciating some really good Maryland basketball players that have come through this program, that have done some really good things, that have helped us reach March Madness last year and came into the program new this year, some of them, and some really solid young men and some really solid people. It was a win that I wanted to, but we lost. We lost an Indiana team that, it's like, I don't know, Indiana team that hasn't been super good this year and absolutely turned disaster as Maryland moves to 15-16, below 500, which in college basketball you don't want to hit. If you're below 500, usually in college basketball at the end of the season, then your program is not in a good spot. You did not have a good year. That means you probably had a really poor out-of-conference, and you lost a lot of games out-of-conference, which Maryland did. They had a bunch of slip-ups out-of-conference, UAB, Davidson, Villanova. We definitely had slip-ups out-of-conference, but it also means you performed really poorly in conference as well. As we move to 15-16, we have one chance, one more game to be able to get a 500 record this year in terms of the regular season before we get into the Big Ten tournament. But we're talking about last chances. This was the last time I was, or any Maryland fan was, going to be able to get to see Jahmir Young in the greatness that he has put on for the Maryland Terrapins. That was the last time we were able to see him play at home, and one of the last times we're going to see him in a Maryland jersey at all. And it was pretty disappointing seeing how he walked off the court after, seeing how kind of that emotion kind of hit him and be like, dang, like, I don't know if it was quite like it's over for him and he's like, dang, like, I'm not going to play any more college basketball, or it was more like, dang, like, this year went horrible, or just everything combined and just feeling like he missed an opportunity. But none of that's on him, because he had one of the better Maryland seasons we have seen overall. And so that's why it's pretty disappointing that we lost to a team like Indiana, where I thought maybe we can win this game because for Jahmir Young, just because of how much he's done for this program this year and how he has kind of carried the team at points. When we have gotten wins, a lot of them, most of them have been, a huge part of it has been because of him. When we've been in close games, it's been because of him. This offense has been bad all year, and he's been the one bright spot where we can look at every single game. You look at the box score, he has basically at least 20 points. But the last time we're going to see Dante Scott at home, and then some of the other guys I'm not sure about, like a Jahari Long or Jordan Geronimo, depending on what they want to do with their eligibility. Jahari Long could come back. I would love to have him back. I think that could be a really good player to have back. I think that's the kind of guy you want to get back. I hope he doesn't transfer out somewhere else. But it was the last chance to see a lot of those guys. Dante Scott's put in a lot of work as a Maryland jersey. He's been playing since he's been a freshman, and he's improved his game. He's improved his shot. He's gotten a lot better, and I look at Dante Scott, and sure, at times it hasn't always been his best, but he's played some really solid, tough-nosed basketball for the Maryland Terrapins. So I call it a disaster that we weren't able to win this game for Maryland and for those guys, really, for those seniors, because it was a game that it looked like we had control. Like, it wasn't close for a certain part of the game. And one thing that was really weird, the 9-point spread I was like, why are we favored by 9 points? That seemed a little bit weird. I don't know if anyone else was like, that's a lot of points for Maryland to cover. And for a game that I was like, I don't even think we're a better team than them. I don't know what is going on with this 9-point spread. But Maryland controlled a lot of the game, and it looked like we were going to cover that for a while. We were up by 16, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I was wrong, and I guess Vegas just knows a lot more than me. But I was like, but also, like, let me wait. This Maryland team has that way of doing that. We're up by 16 in the second half, and still we find a way to allow Indiana to get on a run, to play poor basketball down the stretch, to get away from what we do. And next thing you know, it's inside of 10, it's inside of 5. Indiana has the lead, and they win the game. It felt that simple. And this Indiana team was a pretty good team, I think, but we blew a 16-point lead, a second half lead. Yes, they're good, and I think they're better than what their record says they are, but their record isn't that good this year. They're 16-13. Like, that's nothing special in terms of college basketball. That's, like, not that good. And they're bottom of the Big Ten like we are, and they had a lot of hope going into this year as well, kind of like we did. And I still think this Indiana team, it's like a weirdly, like, really talented team in spots. Like, their front court with those two guys, Aware, and the other kid, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, is Malik Renew, right? Ware and Malik Renew. Those two guys that were a handful to cover. Like, those are maybe one of the best front courts in the Big Ten for sure. Maybe not number one, but they're up there. Julian Reese had a hard time getting a shot over Khalil Ware. He's an NBA player with his size and length. And then Malik Renew is awesome down low as well. They have some really good players. And then they also, some of their guards started playing better. They have talent on that team. Like, that team is better than their 16-13 record. Their talent is a March Madness team. It's like us, but they just weren't able to do that. But they still haven't been that good this year. It's not a team that we should have blown the lead to. And that's why it's disappointing for this team. I wanted this win for our team. I wanted this win for our seniors. I wanted this win for us, but we weren't able to get it overall. And it's like, it's senior day, but it's still, I have to blame the seniors a little bit for the loss. I mean, they're a big part of what we do overall, and a lot of those guys all get minutes for us, including Jameer Young, of course. I'm not blaming the loss on Jameer Young, obviously, but including Jahari Long, who actually had a really good game. And that goes back to my point that I've been making all season long. Jahari Long should be playing more minutes. Should have been playing more minutes all along. I would argue that he should have started for most of the year for Deshaun Harris-Smith, who's definitely stepped up a little bit, but he didn't have one of his best games last night with 4 points off the bench. But I would argue that Jahari Long was just a better, more balanced player this year overall, just more experience, and could have taken pressure off of Deshaun Harris-Smith to start, but we didn't do that. But Jahari Long, when he plays minutes, looks really good. That's why I really hope that we get him back. He is going to be huge to get back for Maryland. Even if he just comes off the bench next year, whatever. He's a guy you want to get back, and I hope Kevin Willis we're working on that. But back to my point of, you still have to kind of blame the seniors for the loss, Dante Scott as well, who had a pretty solid game. He was in double figures scoring and everything, and Jordan Geronimo also provided some offense. But the seniors did still play, but I'm not I'm not going to be like it was their fault. I thought a lot of them had actually pretty solid games overall, but I really got to put some of this on Kevin Willard. Blowing a 16-point lead, it's hard for me to blame anybody but the coach when I'm looking at a lot of the performances, and I'm like, these guys played a lot of guys played a pretty good game, at least offensively. I'm going to get into the rest of the defensive game after I finish talking about this, but just watching seniors walk off the court and watching Jameer Young and watching that video that Big Ten posted, it was like emotional how he walked off. It was pretty horrible. You could tell he was hurt. 22 points, like I talked about, and it was just sad to see him go out like that for Maryland. He still has another game, and the Big Ten tournament, who knows what can happen, but it was just a senior day disaster to blow a lead to Indiana. They looked like they had more fight, and it's not like they needed to win that game to go to the dance. Like, it wasn't like they needed that win overall. So it's pretty disappointing. I felt like disaster struck against Maryland basketball, which kind of has been what it has been the entire year. Feels like lightning has struck the program, and we got hurt pretty bad, and we're going to need a turnaround year overall next year. Maryland got away from their identity against Indiana. I'm going to talk to you about that after this ad from Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further and even wonder what adventures could look like around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have lineups of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventures to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drivers and great escapes. Class inclusive, Google built in your always updating assistants to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touch screen system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. The 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8 and an expensive cargo capacity and advanced ability, the 4x4 capabilities with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing when a venture calls. The Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Maryland got away from its identity against Indiana with the loss. The score ended up being 83-78, which is not the kind of game Maryland wanted at all. Not the kind of game that we've wanted to play. We don't want to play these up and down type of games and get into this high scoring. We don't want to play that type of basketball. We don't win in those type of games. We had a game against Illinois like that, and we lost. But Maryland doesn't want to play that type of game. What have we been good at all year? What have we hung our hat on when times are low and we have trouble getting a bucket and we haven't played well and we still find a way to be in the game? It's the defense. Our defense has been really good all year, like weirdly kind of good all year. With how bad we've been as a team, you would think that our defense was lower rated. But we've had a top defense in the Big Ten for a lot of the season. We were number one in terms of defensive statistics for a while, and I think it's still probably the same. We played really solid defense, which is surprising to me. That's our identity. That's what we've been all year, and we've been a top 20, top 10 team in the country defensively for a lot of the year. And if you look at the scores against most teams, we don't let teams get to 80. We don't let teams score above 80 points. Like, that's rare for it to happen. And so for Indiana to score above 80, props to them for having a good offensive game. They did some good things offensively, but come on. But Maryland's defense has been so good over this whole entire season. But watching them play the last game, it was like against Indiana, it just wasn't what it's been. I don't know why, because I would expect us to have a ton of effort, a ton of energy coming into this game and on this senior day. I thought we would want to win this game for our seniors, but it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like we had quite that fight that just a team like Indiana had, just playing on the road in terms of bench energy, in terms of everything. I didn't see Maryland have that same fight, and I understand it. You're not playing for much. It is senior day, but you're not playing for anything. You're not really playing for much at this point. Who knows? Maybe Maryland could go on a run in the Big Ten tournament. I haven't seen anything to suggest that, but you still want to stick to your identity and play the type of basketball that you want to play. Because if I looked at it, teams don't score 80 against us at all, especially a team like Indiana. The only team to score above 80 points against Maryland basketball this year was against Illinois. It's the only team to score 80 on us all year. Nobody else has hit that mark for the Terps, and a lot of teams haven't come close. And we have played some good teams offensively. So we have played some really good defense for teams to not ever score in the 80s. If you look at other teams, like if you look at Ohio State or a team like that, or teams that are bottom of the defensive statistics, they allow a lot of points, and 80 is pretty consistent in terms of how many points they are allowed. But part of the reason we don't allow that many points is because we can't. If teams score that many points, we have literally no shot at winning the game because we're just not good enough offensively to win games where we get away from our identity overall. But Indiana ended up doing kind of what they wanted on offense, especially in the second half. First half, the defense was there. I don't know if it was like the energy was still up from the senior day presentations and all that type of stuff that goes into these type of games. I don't know if the energy was still there and everything, but in the second half, it was a completely different story. Look at it. In the first half, we allowed 33 points. 33. That'll win you the game. 33 points to Indiana, you're in a good spot against anybody if you allow 33 points. I hope Maryland is able to score with that. And then in the second half, it was 50. So they were on track to score below 70, which is a great mark to be at. They were on track to be right where Maryland wanted them to be defensively. And they scored 50 in the second half. 50 against Indiana, a team that hasn't been that good shooting the ball all year, a team that doesn't have a great guard play, in my opinion, and we allow them to score 50 in the second half. I've seen some teams that are able to score, and Indiana is not one of the teams that should be able to score 50 against you. One of the teams, like maybe if you're playing Kentucky, that Kentucky team can score 100 points in a game, and it's like nothing for them. But a team like Indiana, no. Come on. That's your defense not being where it needed to be. And I don't know what to blame that on. Like, I go back. Is that Kevin Willard's fault for not having them prepare enough? Is that the player's fault for not playing well enough? I don't know exactly. But you can't give up 50 in the second half to Indiana. It just can't happen at all. They also shot pretty good percentages as well. They haven't been a good three-point shooting team. And they ended up shooting 43% from three, which was a really good mark for them, shooting 43%. I think anybody in the country would take that in a game to shoot 43% from three. You can't allow them to get to that percentage. You got to make it harder on them. And, okay, if the game plan is you're going to force them to shoot three-point shots and they shoot the ball well, okay. Well, then they shouldn't shoot 54% from the field as well. So you can't have it every single way. You can't let them go. You can't let them go 40 and 50 from the three and then from the field. You just can't. And Maryland's been a good job of limiting people's threes all year. And if they want to give it a three, they've been a good job of forcing lower field goal percentage. But Maryland got away from its identity overall, and the offense did step up. The offense had one of its better days shooting the ball. Maryland shot 37% from three, which we normally don't get close to. We also shot 90% from the free throw line. And we had a pretty balanced scoring with Jameer Young having 22, Julian Reese having 13, Dante Scott 15, Jahari Long 12, Jordan Geronimo 9. But at the end of the day, that's not the brand of basketball we want to play, and it ends in a loss. So overall, Maryland got away from its identity, which I didn't like. I would love to see us get back to our defensive-centric game plan in our last game against Penn State. But I'm not surprised we lost because we didn't play our game overall. Maryland might have lost this game and lost a battle, but still won the war against Indiana. I will tell you about how we are still above them overall this season, especially because of these last couple of weeks. I will tell you about that after this ad from FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That sounds like a good deal to me. $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, and exclusive props and more. So if you want to bet over on Steph Curry threes, or if you want to bet over on Jason Tatum or LeBron James points, whatever you want to do on FanDuel, you can do, or you can parlay and put it all together and make a parlay. FanDuel has it all. Quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official partner of the NBA. Maryland lost the battle but won the war to Indiana. I don't want you guys to forget that we dropped 2 to Indiana, yes, but that's not what I want you guys to forget. We have something coming under the Christmas tree that Indiana did not and was not able to land. And sure, they won those battles in terms of that. But what we got coming, I much rather have over Indiana than them having that win. Yes, I wanted the win on senior day. I did. I wanted Jameer Young to go out a winner and everything. But at the end of the day, our season is over, and it wasn't going to do a ton for the fans and everyone for us to win. And that's just me being completely honest. I'm not trying to be a bad guy, but it's like we won an extra game. It wasn't much, but it was senior day, so I did want us to get that win for that reason. But other than that, it's like, okay, we won. Indiana beat us twice. They won a couple battles against us, but Indiana isn't going to march either. I think Maryland won the war because we got Derik Queen. And Derik Queen is coming to Maryland, and Indiana can't do anything about it. And Indiana fought for Derik Queen. Derik Queen, Indiana was in his top schools along with Kansas and Houston. And I thought Indiana had a chance at landing him because he's got some teammate there. And then he also, his teammate right now is at Montverde is going to Indiana as well. One of their better players, one of their starters, the Liam kid, he's a really good player. I think he's a 5-star now. I think he's kind of climbed the ranks overall. Derik Queen, of course, is a 5-star as well. But we beat Indiana out for Derik Queen. And I don't want anybody watching this to forget. We lost last night or last afternoon, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was 2 o'clock. It was definitely afternoon. We lost, but Maryland still won the war overall against Indiana. And I can't explain how much it would hurt for me to have to watch and play Indiana once or twice a year, however many times we played them next year, and come out and be like, and Derik Queen drops 18 against us and 10 boards and 3 assists or something like that. I'll be sick because I think Maryland's program would be in the dump right now. I would have no idea what we would do with this thing. I don't know how you would fix it if Indiana landed Derik Queen. But Maryland was able to get him. We won the war against these guys. They took a couple battles. They took a couple of our men, and it did definitely hurt in terms of this year. But Indiana's not going to march. We're talking about getting ready for next year. And Indiana does have a couple other guys in the recruiting class overall. And I'm not like a huge hater on Indiana basketball or anything. I don't dislike them. I don't like Illinois. Illinois does bother me after what they did with them, like putting on the Maryland shirt after they beat us on the plane, after beating a Maryland team that's not that good. That was weird. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you guys look dumb. And then they lost the next game, I think. But I don't dislike this Indiana team. I don't think they showed bad sportsmanship or anything against us unless I missed something overall. And I like some of their players. I like Khalil Ware. I like Malik Renew. I like Gabe Cubs just because I've seen him grow up through the AAU ball and Ball's life and all those type of things, him playing with Bronny. But I do want to emphasize that we won the war against Indiana basketball, and Derik Queen is coming to College Park. And I don't think that maybe this fight's not over, but I don't think Indiana will like it next year when we have him down low. Hopefully we have Julian Reese down low with him. I don't know. And I don't know what happened with that situation, but We won the war with Derik Queen. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.